to spend a little bit of time discussing ITIL. And real quick, I'm just kind of curious, what kind of background do we have from everybody in the room? Just out of curiosity.
We have one person who's ITIL Foundation certified.
Okay, nice. Good, good. It's, there we go. When I first started down this path of becoming ITIL certified and kind of opening Pandora's box, if you will, I was pretty green with it. I'd heard it, and I'd heard the basic idea behind it, but I really hadn't gotten into any of the details. And I was kind of surprised, honestly, at how it just seemed to make sense. Now, my background, historically speaking, my background is in the IT industry. But from an administration standpoint, I kind of came up what I always jokingly like to refer to as the honest way, just like a lot of other technicians come up in the industry, first learning that frontline help desk support, then managing a small team of help desk, that sort of thing. And so I approached this when I first walked in. My mind was purely in a technical place, right? And that's just how I've been conditioned to think about the IT world. And a few things have always kind of eaten at me in the back of my mind throughout my career, and that is occasionally the IT departments seem to arrive at a point where they, not necessarily, I don't mean this to be exactly as cut and dry as it will sound, but it sometimes seems like the IT department can exist to support itself, meaning that the goals of the IT department seem to become disconnected from those of the business that they're there to support. One of the things I like to drive home before I ever got into ITIL, one of the things I always like to drive home to all of the classes that I would teach from an administration standpoint is that IT is a service industry. We are there to provide service to our customer, and our customer being the rest of our parent organization. So all of our users, the administrative staff, the business in general. And when I first started getting into ITIL, it was like somebody had formalized something that was in the back of my mind this entire time. So when you look at what is ITIL, and what does it bring to the table? Sorry. That is kind of it in the nutshell. So who can benefit from this? Well, pretty much anybody. This definitely has its feet in the project or program management area of the business, definitely within the IT department, the IT managers, and really as an organization, within our organization as a whole, anywhere where we like the idea of adding efficiency to our processes, that's exactly what ITIL speaks to. So hopefully at the end of this, we'll have, of course, like I said, this is scratching the surface, barely. There's still an inch of topsoil left. There's like I said, when you open up the box, it gets very deep and very detailed, which is always a nice thing, I think. So hopefully when we walk away from this, you'll have a better understanding what ITIL is, what it's there to do, and hopefully, what New Horizons, what we can do to help you with that. Now, so what is it? This is kind of what I have in mind for us to talk about. What is ITIL exactly? What does it bring to the table? Why is it important, and what can it do for me? And where are the benefits? Because at the end of this, and these are some of the questions that I asked myself when I was first approached and I first kind of had the idea that ITIL was something that I would be interested in. These are the types of questions that I asked myself, and so I kind of feel like I'm a decent representation of the average person that will be looking at this. Somebody brings the idea of ITIL to my table, and these are the things that I would ask. And so what is the value? So there are a few things we want to talk about. Of course, we can go off book and off topic if we need to, if anybody has any specific questions. But for right now, what is ITIL? And this was, anytime I see an acronym, and in the IT world and in the business world in general, but specifically in the IT world, we are in no short supply of acronyms. And so ITIL basically stands for the Information Technology Infrastructure Library. And what that basically means is it alludes to the fact that ITIL is a series of publications that together give us a comprehensive way to improve the efficiency in almost every single aspect of the way we design and deliver the services, the IT services, to our organization. And it really serves as the unofficial industry standard for effective IT service management. And the reason why we call it, or the reason why it's referred to as an unofficial industry standard is because the standardization bodies, the IEEE, ISO, things like that, they haven't really adopted this 100% as a standard. But this is something that was developed in the 1980s within the UK as a way to attempt to standardize the IT services that are being developed at an alarming rate. You know, and the idea was there's a divergence of technology from the business, and we wanted to try to make sure that there was a way to keep kind of everything in line and kind of keep us all marching to the same drum. And so that's essentially what ITIL is. It's just a way to formalize a set of processes that allow us to maintain that business alignment. It's a way to make sure that even when business alignment, the needs of the business are aligned with the services that IT are providing, that we're doing so in the most efficient, effective way possible. Now, it details how each aspect of IT service management can be implemented, or how we can better improve it so that we can serve the needs of an individual organization. And it is broken down into 5 categories. The service strategy, service design, transition, service operation, and then the overall idea of continual service improvement. Now, within service strategy, this is where IT comes to the table with the business, right? And so your director of IT will come together with the CEO, the board of directors, and then they sit and get an idea, and sometimes a formal idea of the direction the business is heading in. And then they start developing strategies. They start brainstorming strategies on what IT can do, what IT can bring to the table to make that happen, to facilitate that strategy, to help the business achieve its goals. Once we have a formalized set of service strategy, then we can hand that over to service design. And service design, whole purpose for being is to just make sure that we design and create appropriate IT services that advance the overall strategy of the business. Once that service design, once that service package has been designed, then it's handed over to service transition. Service transition is responsible for making sure that the new services we designed as a result of the strategy that's been defined are put into place smoothly and effectively without disrupting the existing line of business. From there, it's just focusing on making sure that those services that we built and transitioned over to continue to function. We have that, this is where we monitor and manage the service level agreements. If your service level agreement specifies that a specific service, maybe that is your email service or a website, corporate website that is available to public customers or outside customers, maybe that website service level agreement is defined as needing to be accessible 99% of the time. Well, service operation is there to make sure that that service level agreement has been met or exceeded. The overall idea of continual service improvement is that even after we go through all of these high-level steps to ensure that everything works the way it was designed to and that we're headed in the right direction, that we identify consistently and continuously ways that we can always improve ourselves. And if you think about it, just how dynamic of an industry IT is, technology in general is. Things are always changing. And continual service improvement means that we are going to be looking at some of these emerging technologies as ways to improve the level of service that we give, the consistency of the service we give. We're going to help reduce costs in providing those same levels of service. And so this continual service improvement approach actually covers all four of the previous layers. So continual service improvement will always be playing a part in service strategy. It will always play a part in being able to help us identify ways to design better services, ways to improve the transition of services, or ways to improve the day-to-day operations of those services. And so together, this gives us a comprehensive way to make sure that we are all marching to the same drum and that we're consistently and continuously meeting the needs or exceeding the needs of our customer, our business. Now, so why is it important? Like I said a moment ago, the importance of IT in today's business world. One of the things I always tell folks is our footprint, our digital footprint, isn't getting smaller. It's only going to get bigger. It wasn't that long ago that the idea of operating in the cloud was laughable. Not necessarily laughable, but it was something that people would either roll their eyes at or shrug their shoulders, and nobody really knew how they would feel about it. Now, it's moving from the novelty to the expectation. And a good example of that is how we're meeting today and how a lot of courses are delivered today. The need to be bound by a brick-and-mortar institution, a brick-and-mortar building, is becoming a little bit less important. And so because of this constant evolution of new technology, we need to have a way in the business world to maintain relevance, to constantly meet the new demands. If we don't have a mechanism, we don't have an eye to that future horizon, then it gives competitors an opportunity to infiltrate into the market share. And so the whole idea behind ITIL is to align the functions of the business, or the functions of your individual IT department, with the needs of the individual business. And the kind of nice thing about this is that it's descriptive. It's not exactly prescriptive, which means that it's not all that rigid. It gives you, as it says, a common sense approach to being able to make the more effective use of your existing investment. That's, after all, your IT department is an investment. And we want to make sure that the IT department works for us in the best way possible. And that's kind of what ITIL is there to do. It's to give us a roadmap, if you will, for us to be able to ensure that that happens. So it gives detailed descriptions of IT practices. It can even give us ways to have, it even gives us checklists and procedures that we can follow to help kind of give us a safety net. So back to what we were talking about a moment ago, when we have that service design, we define the service strategy, the direction the business needs to go in, and what the IT department needs to be able to do to support that that strategic goal, then we design those services in service design. Once those services have been designed, we hand those service design packages over to a service transition team. And it's their job to make sure that those newly designed or newly improved services get put in place effectively and efficiently without injecting problems into our world. And so these checklists and these procedures can serve as a nice little reminder of how we can go about doing that without, while minimizing risk as much as possible. So I kind of dig that. I really do. The fact that it is descriptive and not prescriptive means that we don't have to reinvent the wheel necessarily. We look at their idea of best practices and mold those best practices to suit our needs. So it can be customized. So what does it mean for us? So it gives us a means to an end, to be honest with you. It just gives us, and in my mind, kind of going back to the way I introduced this topic, this was something that was, this was a nugget of an idea that was in the back of my head, just things that I have identified as problematic in any of the infrastructures, any of the organizations that I have managed or worked within. It gives us a way to make sure that we are doing more than just existing. So it gives us a way to make sure that IT departments can respond to the changes that the business meets, and that the existing services meet our current needs, as well as gives us room to grow into future needs. You know, one of the things that I always bring up in technical courses that I may teach would be proper planning sets us free. And we don't, the idea that you only plan for what your immediate needs are means that you're going to have to do more work in the long run, because you plan for your immediate needs, and then not too far off in the not too distant future, your needs change. And rather than build in that resiliency to be able to accommodate that change, you now have to go back and repeat that work. And so you find yourself in an endless cycle of lather, rinse, repeat. Another aspect of ITIL is to make sure that any changes we implement are cost justifiable. And this kind of reins in what I like to just refer to as gadget envy. I'm you know, kind of a computer nerd by nature, and I won't lie, there are lots and lots of things that I would like to have in an organization simply because it's the latest and greatest toy. And I want to either A, learn how to use it, B, become proficient with it, or C, just because somebody I know used it may really like it. So what ITIL does is gives us a way to try and avoid those pitfalls, because anything that we put in play within the IT industry, within the IT department, is an investment. We have to spend money in order to acquire that. So this gives us a way to ensure that the benefits of acquiring that new technology or making this change result in a proper return on that investment. It also gives us a way, ITIL kind of encourages this. It doesn't exactly prescribe this. It doesn't exactly say you need to do this, but it gives us encouragement as potentially as IT directors to actually treat our department as if it is a business in its own right, and with our organization as our only customer. Right? And I kind of like that idea. And this is something going back quite a ways in a previous life. I used to run a call center, and part of the job of the technicians in that call center was to generate sales. You know, they would try to sell customers on upgraded equipment, things like that. And the technicians didn't really enjoy that aspect of the job. Most of them were computer nerds like me, and they were there to to learn more about the IT industry and to fix problems. They didn't really see themselves as part of the business side of the business, right? And I see that as kind of a cornerstone issue, because we very much are part of the business side of the business. And one of the things that we did was we divided our call center into teams. And each team had their own manager, and each manager was given a set of directives. Here are the policies. You can't violate these policies. Outside of that, your team is yours to manage. Treat it like your own business. Run your team like you would if this were your own business. And we created incentives and things like that. And after everybody kind of bought into that idea, efficiency across the board went up by, I think, the lowest, and this is going back at least 12 years, so you'll have to forgive me if I don't remember exactly the numbers, but it was, I think the lowest improvement was 20% improvement, and this was in quality. There was somewhere like a 35% improvement in sales. And the reason was kind of a level of, not necessarily accountability, but a level of ownership that came along with it. You know, within the IT industry, within the IT world as a whole, outsourcing now is commonplace. We're not necessarily talking about sending jobs overseas so much as if we want to manage backups for our data. Well, that's something that traditionally falls to your IT department to manage backups, but now there are plenty of online services that you can secure that will take care of that information for you. And that's kind of where the idea of the cloud came from and evolved from in the first place. Because of our ability to outsource a lot easier now, when and if an IT department takes ownership of that department and starts treating it as if they were running their own business with the parent organization as the customer, it makes them a lot more competitive. So ITIL gives us a way to look at that and a way to treat the IT department so that it is always there to take care of the business first and itself second. Now, it encourages managers to run the department like a business with your own organization as its customer, like we said. So where does the real value of ITIL come from? Really, the real value comes in a lot more areas than I can easily put into into a couple of slides. But some of the high points is it helps reduce your total cost of ownership. And it does that by making sure that we have better resource utilization. This is part of that efficiency and effectiveness that we were talking about earlier. This gives us a way, ITIL gives us a way that before we go out and purchase new equipment, we get a real idea of what the level of utilization already is. And we identify ways that we can possibly consolidate resources so that we can either free up a server to be able to support an additional service, or that we can justify the reason why we need to make a purchase, make an acquisition. It also identifies our target profile, our risk profile, and help us reduce or in some cases eliminate exposure to those risks. I'm going to say, not all risk can be eliminated. So we can either reduce our exposure, eliminate the risk in some cases, or in those cases where a specific type of risk is just part and parcel of kind of the nature of the beast, it gives us a way to mitigate the impact that potential risk could have on our organization by implementing contingency plans. So it can also give us better measurements, and through those better measurements, better adherence to service level agreements. Can help reduce incidents, reduce support costs, reduce downtime, increase first call resolution, as we like to call it. They want to increase the rates at which issues that are brought to your help desk or to your IT department are resolved the very first time. Now, before we get into questions, there are a couple of things that I wanted to kind of summarize. Now, there's a few organizations out there that kind of pay attention to who has adopted ITIL, how ITIL is adopted. Companies like Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble went through a process of implementing ITIL several years ago, and they had a pretty strict adherence from all the reports that I've read. They've had a pretty strict adherence to the ITIL philosophy. And over a series of 4 years, they reported a cost savings of $500 million. Now, of course, that's over several years, over 4 years, but that's a significant improvement just in and of itself. Does ITIL cost money to implement? It can, absolutely. First off, we need to learn what ITIL is, and we need to learn how to apply it. Then you have to be able to apply that to your situation, to your organization. It's customizable, and it's designed to have own purpose. And so there is a learning curve associated with it. But when you start looking at things in terms of a return on investment, other companies are seeing pretty important returns. Another consulting firm looked at adoption of efficiency processes. And so they looked at things like ITIL. They looked at things like COBIT, Lean Six Sigma, ISO 20000, that sort of thing. And they found the vast majority of companies, somewhere in the neighborhood of 80% of the companies that implemented some sort of efficiency process, chose ITIL. So that's one of the things. They say it is the unofficial standard. That's just kind of proof of that aspect of it, because the vast majority of organizations seem to gravitate toward ITIL because of the fact that out of all of them, it seems to have the biggest return on investment. So we can improve resource utilization. You can improve customer satisfaction. If for no other reason, you're going to reduce your downtime. And then when issues come up, because they always are, we can't ever eliminate problems, right? We can't ever eliminate problems. All we can really do, the best thing we can do is set the stage so that if problems happen, we're able to recover from them and return to a normal operating environment as quickly and as effectively and as efficiently as possible. And it's kind of amazing. And I owe some of this to my father, my upbringing. I grew up in Oklahoma, and I don't think my dad has ever touched a computer willingly. He's just very old school. And it's funny that the older I get, the smarter he gets, because he drove into my head as a kid growing up. And that's specifically with my car, but overall with pretty much anything I owned. He said, you have to take care of it because it's going to break at some point. Anything with the moving parts, any machine is going to break. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so the best thing we can do is prepare in advance for that failure. Now, of course, he was talking about things like tires for my car, and shocks or brakes, things like that. Don't spend all your money having fun. Make sure you have something set aside so when you need new tires, it's not an emergency. And as I moved into the professional world, even though my dad is not an IT guy, he's not exactly what we would call tech savvy, that advice has helped me more professionally than I ever thought it would when I was 16. So that's really what ITIL does, is it gives us a way to set the stage so that we can account for as many eventualities as possible. We can uncover opportunities for improvement, and we can uncover opportunities to introduce new services that can make us more competitive in the markets that we're in. So outside of that, that's pretty much all I have as far as ITIL. Like I said, just want to give you a nice little overview. Does anybody have any questions for me?
And if you guys type in your questions, I'll relay them to Scott. We have a question here that says, what do you see as the relationship between ITIL and project management?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? What do I see as the relationship?
Yeah, what do you see as the relationship between ITIL and project management?
Well, the ideas in project management is just to identify, first off, within project management, we have to be able to define the scope of the project, what it is that we are wanting to accomplish and what our end result should look like. And then we need to be able to allocate the resources in order to make that happen, both human resources as well as capital resources. And ITIL takes a very similar approach within your IT services. It all starts with knowing where we want to be. It's the idea of being able to, it's the idea of not really accurately being able to measure your progress until you know where you want to go, what the end result should look like. And in that way, project management and ITIL are similar, because with project management, it's very difficult for you to be able to effectively execute a project successfully unless you have a clear indication of what that end result should look like. I won't go into too many details on here, but in a previous life I worked for an organization who had a kind of a tendency to suffer from problems that can result from a lack of a clear direction. It was, and we would always joke within our team that it was always like the person that wanted the project, that whatever service we were designing, what they wanted, they would say, "Go get me a rock," and the equivalent would be, "Go outside and find me a rock and bring it to me." And we would ask, "Okay, well, what kind of rock is it? How big do you want it? Should it be a specific color? Should it be able to be carried by one person?" Details, something that would define the scope. And they said, "Well, I don't know. I'll know what it looks like. I'll know it when I see it. So just go get me a rock." And so you go out, and of course, we're talking about a metaphorical rock here, right? So you go out and you find that rock, you bring it back to them, and you say, here's what you asked for. Here's the rock. And they say, "No, that's not it." "Okay, well, what about this rock isn't suiting your needs? What is it that you don't like?" "I'm not really sure. I just know that's not the rock I need." "Okay, go back out and get another." So you run back out there, and you find another rock that's completely different than the one that you just brought. And you bring it back. "Well, that one might be a little closer to what I want." "Okay, well, what about it is closer?" "I don't know. I just know I like it a little bit better than the one you brought me before. So go out and try again." It's that Sisyphean idea of always pushing that boulder up the hill with no real goal in sight. Project management without a clear-cut goal is, I won't call it an exercise in futility, but it very much puts you behind the eight ball. ITIL is very similar in that respect. This gives us a way to define the project, define the strategy, what it is we want to accomplish, and then it gives us mechanisms throughout the entire life cycle of ways that we can best accomplish that goal, including ways that we can improve the goal or improve the processes we put in place, identify improvements beyond the scope of that initial project, and uncover new markets that we might be able to get into, or uncover ways that we can increase our competitive edge in the markets we're already in. So I hope that answers your question. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm not getting any other questions right here. I know that Scott and I will be hanging out for a couple more minutes if there are any more questions, but otherwise, if there's nothing else, then we wanted to say thank you to everyone for showing up, and thank you to Scott. A round of applause for him for his presentation today. And again, if there's anything else, feel free to ask. Scott and myself will be here for a couple more minutes. Otherwise, thank you and have a great day.
Thank you guys very much for being here.